The first signal was faint, barely noticeable, lost within the static of the deep sea. But the second signal was different. It was clear, sharp, too sharp for the usual transmissions from the Mariana Trench. The research crew aboard the Cetus submarine had been preparing for a routine dive to study the geological formations deep beneath the ocean's surface. But now, as the submersible descended further, the signals grew louder, more urgent. At 6,000 meters, the crew was still laughing, distracted by the sheer isolation of the mission. The deep ocean had always been a place of mystery, but nothing that could cause real harm. No one expected the deep to speak back. That's when they heard it. A voice, soft and low, echoing through the comm system. It wasn't from anyone on board. It was a whisper, ancient, buried beneath layers of oceanic pressure. Come deeper. A chill ran through the submarine. Captain Emily Lawson, seasoned in deep-sea exploration, was the first to react. She ordered the communication system shut down, thinking it was a malfunction. But then, the whispers came again, louder, clearer. A chorus of voices, layered, one on top of the other, like something alive down there.
We know you're here. Come closer. Panic started to rise in the pit of Emily's stomach. The submarine shuddered slightly, as if something immense had brushed against it. The other crew members sat frozen, staring at the monitors, the lights flickering, as if the vessel itself was being tugged by something unseen, something from the deep. No one had spoken the words aloud, but everyone knew something was down there. By now, the crew was no longer laughing. They were silent, tense, watching the depths stretch beneath them. Emily, with a steady voice, ordered a turn upward, but the submersible refused to move as it once had. The thrusters strained, but the direction was wrong. Instead of ascending, it seemed as though they were being pulled further. The lights flickered again, but this time they didn't return to full brightness. The entire submersible was plunged into an unnatural dimness, and the walls around them, once a comforting shade of steel, now seemed to swell, as if the ocean itself were encroaching on them. The whispers grew, swirling around them, so close it was impossible to tell where the voice was coming from. Come deeper. Join us. Emily gripped the controls. The voice, distorted and cold, was no longer a whisper.
It was like a deep, resonating hum, vibrating through the hull of the submarine. The crew's eyes darted nervously from screen to screen. What was happening? No one spoke. They were trapped, unable to move. Suddenly, the entire sub shuddered. The lights went out completely. "We've been waiting for you." The voice rang in their minds, as though it had always been there. The crew felt it in their bones, the weight of the deep ocean pressing down on them. It wasn't just the sea. It was alive, and it was waiting. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of voices in unison now. They were watching them. It was in that moment that Emily realized they had gone too far. The warning signs had been clear, but her training had told her to ignore them. The ocean had always been silent before, but now it was a living, breathing entity, one that wanted something, wanted them. "It's not too late. You don't have to join us," the voice whispered again, its tone mocking, soothing, like it had been speaking to them for centuries. "You've been chosen, Emily Lawson. You and your crew. You have no choice but to descend further. Come to the heart of the abyss." Emily felt a weight settle in her chest. The realization sank in. There was no escape.
The ocean wasn't a place to be explored. It was a place to be consumed. The submersible continued to drift deeper, as if the ocean was pulling them with an inevitability they couldn't fight. The crew struggled with the controls, but every movement felt useless. There was no going up, no way back. They saw it first on the sonar, a massive, unknown object moving below them. It was too large to comprehend, its shape unnatural and shifting. It wasn't a sea creature. It was something else, a living presence, older than the ocean itself. Come closer. The voice beckoned again, this time directly through the communication system. Emily's hand shook as she reached for the controls. It was no longer a question of choice. The deep sea had taken them. There was no return, only the pull of the abyss. The entire sub shuddered violently. The crew screamed, but their voices were swallowed by the deep. When the surface crew finally received the last transmission from Cius, they could make out only fragments. Static. A voice. The words they could decipher were chilling. We are the ocean. We are you. And then, nothing. Days later, a rescue mission was dispatched. They found the Cetus, floating, empty.
The submersible's equipment was intact, untouched by the deep, but the crew, gone. There was no sign of a struggle, no bodies, only the eerie silence of the ocean surrounding them. In the log left behind, one last entry read, "It was waiting for us. We should never have come. The ocean is not what we thought it was. It took us, and now we're part of it." The rescue crew found no further answers. The mission was declared a loss, the file sealed. The ocean had claimed another crew, and the whispers of the abyss continued to echo. This was not an isolated event. There were others before them, and there will be others after. Chapter 2, The Awakening. The silence that followed was unnerving. No one spoke, no one moved. The only sound in the Cetus was the hum of the submarine systems, struggling against the pressure of the deep. Emily sat motionless in the captain's chair, staring at the monitors, unable to comprehend the reality of what had just transpired. The whispers had stopped, but the presence of something else lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. It was as if the very ocean around them was alive, watching, waiting for them to make a mistake. But the crew, every last one of them, was paralyzed by fear, unable to process what was happening. The sonar showed nothing unusual, yet they all knew. They all felt it. The ocean wasn't silent anymore. It was speaking to them. They just couldn't understand what it wanted. The deep was vast, older than human memory, and the entity within it was something beyond human comprehension. They had crossed a line. They had descended too far. They had provoked something ancient. The voice had said they were chosen. Chosen for what? The thought gnawed at Emily's mind, as if it were trying to break through her professional demeanor. She was trained to remain calm, to stay focused, but the weight of the unknown was starting to press in on her. Something had awakened, something that shouldn't have been disturbed. Suddenly, the lights flickered. For a moment, everything was dark. The submersible's power grid sputtered in and out. Then it was back, but the mood had shifted. The light felt wrong, like it was fighting against the dark abyss pressing in around them. "What the hell is going on?" yelled Peter, the engineer, his voice shaking.
We have to abort.
Emily could see the panic in his eyes. She felt it too, but she couldn't afford to show it. She had to maintain
Emily,
control.
look at this. It's spreading too
"Stay calm,"
fast.
she said. Her voice was steady, but even she wasn't sure if she believed it herself.
The submersible shuddered again, this time harder than before. The walls creaked under the pressure of the ocean above them. Something outside was moving. It was big, bigger than anything they had ever encountered in their years of exploration. "It's too late," came the voice again, but this time it wasn't through the comm system. It was directly inside their heads, echoing through their minds. Emily's blood ran cold. "You're already ours." The voice was clearer now, more forceful, no longer a whisper, but a command. The entire crew felt it, an invasive presence, like a cold, oppressive weight in their minds. The floor beneath them shifted, groaning under the immense pressure. The submarine was no longer just an object floating in the sea. It was connected to something. "Come deeper," the voice beckoned once more, this time with a sense of urgency. There was no question now. Whatever it was out there, it wanted them, and it wasn't going to stop until it had them. "Emily,"
The voice whispered again, now calling her directly. It was more than a sound. It was a feeling. It was like the voice was in her very blood, pulsing through her veins. Her heart raced as she turned to face the rest of the crew, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror.
It was happening to all of them now. They could feel it too. They were no longer just in the ocean. They were inside something that had waited for them. Peter stumbled back, his eyes wide with panic. "We need to leave. We need to go up, now," he shouted, frantically trying to work the controls. But the thrusters weren't responding. It was no use. The submersible lurched again, this time with a violent force. The lights flickered once more, and then everything went pitch black. The eerie foam of the ocean pressing against the hull was the only sound now. And then, in the distance, something appeared on the sonar. It wasn't a creature, at least not one that could be understood by human eyes. It was a mass, an enormous shifting mass of something unknown, its outline blurring and reshaping itself, moving closer with a pace that didn't make sense. It wasn't alive, yet it wasn't dead. It was something else. Emily gripped the controls, but the submersible was no longer in her hands. It was being pulled. "It's coming," the voice in their heads whispered. "It has always been here." And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the whisper stopped. For a split second, there was absolute silence.
And then the submarine shook violently again, throwing everyone off balance. "Welcome," came the voice, echoing in unison from every corner of the submersible. The lights flickered back on, and Emily saw it. A shape, a shadow, larger than the submersible itself. It pressed against the outer hull, something that could not be understood by human eyes. It was there, watching, waiting, and then it was gone. The next few minutes passed in complete silence, but it was a silence that pressed in, heavy and suffocating. The crew sat frozen in place, too afraid to move, too afraid to speak. They all felt it. It had been there. They knew it, but none of them could explain it. Emily's mind raced. There had to be an explanation. There had to be something they missed. But the truth was beginning to sink in. There was no explanation. This wasn't a malfunction. This wasn't a hallucination. Something from the depths had called them, and now they were here. "Captain, we need to go up. We're losing power," Peter said, his voice strained. Emily nodded, her hands trembling as she reached for the controls. But as she tried to ascend, the submersible didn't respond. The lights flickered once more, but this time, they didn't return.
The sub was plunged into darkness, and for a moment the only sound was the rapid breathing of the crew. "It's too late now," the voice said again, low and guttural, but this time it came from everywhere. And then, the water outside the submarine began to change. It was no longer a simple ocean. There was something in it, something alive. They were no longer just deep in the ocean. They were inside something that didn't belong in the ocean. The submersible continued its descent, even though Emily tried again and again to force it to ascend. The controls were useless. The deep sea, the vast abyss, had taken hold. The crew was trapped, their fate sealed by the very ocean they had come to study. It wasn't long before they felt it, something brushing against the hull, something massive, with a presence that pressed into their minds. The whispers started again, louder this time, a crescendo of voices, each one speaking over the other, calling them, urging them, pulling them deeper into the abyss. And then the submersible stopped. The lights flickered one last time, and then went out. The crew screamed in panic, but their voices were swallowed by the weight of the water pressing down on them. The temperature dropped. The air inside the sub turned heavy, and the walls groaned, as if the ocean itself was squeezing them. Emily's heart raced as she looked out the porthole. She saw it. Something massive, something ancient, rising up from the depths. It wasn't a creature, not in the way they understood it. It was something older, something that shouldn't exist. The ocean had opened, and now they were part of it. And as the submersible sank deeper, the voice echoed through their minds one final time. You will never leave. Disculpe per la confusión. The submersible descended deeper into the abyss, its hull groaning under the immense pressure. Emily's hands gripped the controls, but they were useless now. The ocean had claimed them, and there was no escape. The whispers, a chorus of voices, grew louder with every passing second. They were everywhere, inside their minds, in the walls, in the very water surrounding them. Come closer. The words reverberated through their bones, as if the deep sea itself was speaking to them. It was no longer just the crew. The whispers had infiltrated every thought, every nerve. The submersible, once a vessel of exploration, now felt like a coffin, sinking deeper and deeper into the heart of the ocean, with no way to stop it. We've been waiting for you, the voice called again, and this time it was different. It wasn't just a whisper, it was a command. The sub lurched forward, and Emily's heart skipped a beat. The monitors blinked back to life, but what they displayed wasn't right. The sonar readouts were distorted, showing an image of something massive moving towards them, its shape shifting, twisting, a silhouette that defied comprehension. What the hell is that? Peter gasped, his voice shaking as he looked at the screen. The others stared, their faces pale, their eyes wide with disbelief. The mass on the sonar wasn't a creature, not in any sense they could understand. It was something far worse. It was alive, but not like any living thing they had ever encountered. It was an entity, something that existed beyond the ocean, beyond human comprehension, and it was coming for them. Emily felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead. She tried the controls again, but the sub refused to move. They were stuck, trapped. You're ours now, the voice whispered, this time not in their minds, but through the comm system. The walls of the sub creaked, a low, menacing sound, as if something was pressing against them, something massive and ancient. The lights flickered again, casting strange, long shadows across the walls. Outside, the ocean was pitch black, the darkness pressing in from all sides. There was no escape. We've always been here, the voice continued, now with a sinister tone. The deep calls to those who belong. You belong to us now, Emily Lawson. The air inside the sub grew thick, suffocating. Emily's breath came in shallow gasps as she looked around at the crew. They were all frozen in place, their faces pale with fear. Peter, who had always been the most skeptical of the group, was shaking, his eyes wide with terror. It's not real, he muttered to himself, trying to convince himself that it was all in their heads. But the whispers, the pressure, the overwhelming sense of dread, it was real. It was happening. You cannot leave, the voice said again, this time directly into Emily's mind. You will be one with the depths. The sub shuddered violently, as if something massive had collided with it. The windows cracked under the immense pressure, and water began to leak in. The crew screamed, but their voices were drowned out by the deafening noise of the ocean pressing against the sub. The entity outside had them now. It had claimed them. There was no escape. The whispers intensified, overlapping, a constant barrage of voices telling them the same thing. You are ours now. The sub began to sink faster, pulled down into the ocean's depths. Emily's vision blurred, and for a moment she felt herself drifting, as if the deep sea was pulling her under, drowning her in its darkness. But even as the sub descended, even as the water flooded in, she felt a strange sense of calm. She knew that she wasn't just dying, she was becoming part of it, part of the deep. The ocean had claimed them, and now they were its. It was the final truth, the truth they would never escape. The whispers were a part of her now, and she would never be free of them. The submersible sank deeper into the abyss, the weight of the ocean pressing harder against its walls.
The water inside was rising, slowly at first, then more rapidly as the pressure increased. Emily's hands were frozen on the controls, but there was nothing left to control.
The deep had already taken them. The whispers were no longer distant voices. They were inside her, filling her mind, her every thought. "You belong to the deep now," the voice murmured, a cold, suffocating presence. It wasn't just the ocean, it was something older, something that had always been there, waiting. The lights flickered for the last time, plunging the crew into total darkness. The whispers intensified, overwhelming, suffocating. The ocean had claimed them. It was a finality that had always been inevitable, but only now did Emily truly understand it. "It is over," the voice whispered in her mind, as if it had been the one guiding them all along. The submersible's hull groaned, the last sound they would ever hear. And then, silence. When the rescue team found the Cetus days later, there was nothing left. No crew, no trace. Only the submarine, floating in the depths, empty. No signs of struggle, no bodies. Just the deep, dark ocean that had swallowed them whole. The only thing they found was the final entry in the ship's log, a message from Emily, dated hours before their disappearance. "We are part of it now. We are part of the deep." The logs were sealed, the files classified. The truth was buried beneath the ocean, and the whispers of the abyss would continue, waiting for the next to answer its call.